Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Alpharetta City Council meeting and public hearing for March 4th, 2024. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Note for the record that all members of council are present and accounted for except for Councilman Brady and Councilman Will. They'll not be able to join us this evening. As always, we begin our meetings with a Pledge of Allegiance, so if you're able, please stand and join us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First item up on our agenda this evening is presentations and proclamations, and we'll begin with the Wacky World Playground donor recognition. So, Mr. Scott, Mr. Rogers, Councilman Hypes, if you'll join me down at Dice.
All right, Council, thank you so much. Those here today, just want to take the opportunity. We are in the midst of doing a tremendous renovation project to our beloved Wacky World Playground. We're going to on the verge of rebuilding it bigger and better. Here in the fall, we will have a large community build project where we're in the process of recruiting volunteers all across the city to help us with that. But along with that, we are in the process of fundraising because part of making this even bigger and better and fully inclusive for the special needs children of Alpharetta is the need to fundraise. And we're here tonight to honor and thank a very generous pledge that the Wacky World Playground and the citizens of Alpharetta have received. So with that, I don't typically do the official work.
Thank you, Jeremy. We're here tonight to thank the Evans family for a generous donation to Wacky World. So if RT, if you and Sarah would come up, thank you. So the Evans family brought a big check with them tonight. And so I tell you what, I think if y'all would slide over by the mayor.
Okay. Yep.
Okay. Jeremy and his committee have a goal of raising $750,000 to make Wacky World a destination playground and one of the playgrounds in remembrance of the playground that was community built 25 years ago. So we, the Evans family certainly helps us toward that goal, and we couldn't be more thankful to have the Evans family in our community. So thank y'all, and we would love for y'all to make some comments.
We can't thank the city of Alpharetta enough. You guys are so great. I mean, Mayor Gilvin, city councilman, the police department, city workers, you all make this place great. There's very few cities still left in the metro Atlanta area like this one. It's a fun, safe place to raise a family and a great place to work. So we really appreciate that. Just kind of an anecdotal note. My kid's favorite playground is Wacky World. I was telling several people this earlier. So for me, it's a passion project and very excited about it and excited to see what's next and what's coming in the city of Alpharetta and also the park. Thank y'all.
Well, I just want to thank you. Sarah, you sure you don't want to say anything?
He said it all.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry you didn't bring the kids so they could get their picture in the paper. That would have been awesome. But we're very grateful. You're great corporate residents, but you're also a great family. And your support for the city of Alpharetta has been amazing. Your entire family. We appreciate it. We're grateful. And it's people like you that make this city special. So thank you very much.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Good job, Eric.
All right, so the next item up on our agenda will be the work session items. The first work session item will be the Alpha Loop priorities. Director Sisevich, you have the floor. There we go.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Before you tonight is the Alpha Loop priorities, a little backtracking. We had $7.5 million in the parks bond for the Alpha Loop expansion. Initially, and through a IGA with the CID, we allocated those dollars towards a tunnel underneath Haynesbridge Road. Unfortunately, when they did their design work, our initial plan was costs were coming in over $9 million, around 9.5 to be exact. So we started looking at some other options. Unfortunately, none of those are panning out. So now we're here tonight to go, instead of the $7.5 million going towards the tunnel, to a group of about 5 different portions of the Alpha Loop to expand it throughout the city. So on the exhibit, there's 5 locations. And the first one is along West Side Parkway, extending these are in order of our staff's preference, by the way. Extending an 8-foot wide sidewalk from the Village Tavern, where the existing or the new Alpha Loop will be coming out, all the way to Haynesbridge Road, and then crossing Haynesbridge Road to tie into the 8-foot wide sidewalk that the Gathering is currently constructing. That section is already designed along West Side Parkway, so that's good news there. And we believe there might even be some savings in the Alpha Loop contract with our contractor. We'll know that closer we get to the final stages of the project, that we might be able to have them continue the sidewalk all the way to Haynesbridge Road for us. Number 2 is Roswell Street from Old Milton Parkway to Old Roswell Street. This also includes a T-Splosh project of Milton or Marietta Street and Roswell Street improvements. And that, just for a visual, help frame everything. We are in the process, it is designed. We are in the process of acquiring right-of-way through this area. We think we have about a month or so before the right-of-way is acquired, and then we'll bid out the project for construction. So, as I said, that's already designed. Moving forward, the third area that we're looking at is Roswell Street from DeVore Road all the way to Old Milton Parkway. And this is part of through a master plan that community development worked with. And the DeVore Road, there's a roundabout going there. There's a new DeVore Road that GDOT is building. And all the frontage is fronting the Wills Park Community Center. Now, it is a challenging spot bringing it down that section. We have a detention pond to work through. We have 2 raised water vaults in that area, plus some specimen trees. So we're threading a needle, but we'll have to go figure it out through the design process. The other side of the street, just in case you're wondering, has more mature trees closer to the road. So we'll not be able to finish in that area there. No design work has taken place at all in this section, other than the concept you see. The fourth one is the extension of DeVore Road, and that's right where the QT is. And just for reference, the Atlee's down here. So if you see in that concept, they're getting rid of the 2. There's a right turn lane into the Quick Trip, and there's a tapering acceleration lane, if you want to call it, out of the Quick Trip there. And what this plan does, and the concept, is basically replacing that travel lane with a wide sidewalk, 12-foot wide sidewalk, and a beauty strip. That too would have to be designed. That hasn't been designed yet. And then the final recommendation is crossing Kingery Lane at, or Old Mill Parkway at Kingery Lane. And that has not been designed, other than you see the concept here. So we'll go out solicitation for that to acquire a consultant to handle that. But what is challenging at this spot is the right-of-way along Old Mill Parkway is tight on the, I will say, on the left-hand side of the page, opposite side of the post office. We'll have a mast arm to relocate in that area. It's right where we need to put the 12-foot wide Alpha Loop. So we will also have to get a GDOT permit as well. So that one will take the longest of all of the projects that we see right now to go from design into construction. So that does not include everything. We believe there is still some funding available out of the $7.5 million, but right now, without knowing what utilities we relocate, any right-of-way we have to acquire, especially along the Old Mill Parkway parcel, we're leaving a little, I don't want to say, a little cushion to move before we move forward with any other sections for recommendation. So, open up to any questions, comments, or concerns.
Any questions or Councilman Mitchell?
Thank you. Thank you, Pete. This is helpful. I'm looking at the crosswalk on Old Milton Parkway, and what I'm wondering is, would this include like some flashing lights like we have on Haynes Bridge? I think those things are extremely helpful for vehicular traffic to draw attention to the crosswalk, and I'm especially concerned about it there at Old Milton where the traffic tends to be really a high volume and fast.
So the good news is there's a traffic signal there.
The what?
There's a traffic signal at that location.
Okay.
So we wouldn't have to put any rapid flashing beacons. We just have to program the timing of that signal to allow pedestrians to cross safely. So we'll probably have to add a few more seconds to the timing. And pedestrians have to push the button. If they don't push the button, they won't get the allowable time that they need to cross the intersection.
Okay.
So we'll have some education to do as well.
All right, and how, like on Old Haynes Bridge, there's no delay for pedestrians. If they push the button, the lights come on immediately. How would that work on, and I'm not sure there shouldn't be a delay for pedestrians to wait until the traffic could get through.
So
it's
Haynes
kind
Bridge-
of,
So the Haynes Bridge over here,
yes,
those are the rapid flashing beacons. So it's one of those where you push the button, alerts the drivers. We hope the drivers slow down and eventually stop. And then for the pedestrians to walk across. This one at Old Milton, as well as Haynes Bridge, where the QT is, it will be a full signalized intersection where you push the pedestrian button, you will get a walk signal, red light in all 4 directions, so you can walk safely across.
okay.
This is going to be safer than crossing Haynes Bridge Road over by Park Street, or Brook
Okay.
Street.
All right, thank you.
Councilman Hypes?
Pete, thank you for bringing this forward. On that last point, is the light that's being contemplated by the QT, will it be similar to what we had at Rock Mill Park for the Greenway to get users across the road before we had the tunnel? Wasn't that a signalized?
So this signal here, Haynes Bridge and DeVore, is signalized as well.
Right.
So we'll have the walk signal like we have
Okay.
here crossing State Route 9 out in front of City Center.
Okay. In addition to just having a regular signal, will there be anything else to alert drivers that might be a higher volume crossing?
We can look at something. We could most definitely figure, I mean, if the pedestrian pushes the button, maybe have a little precursor flasher along the corridor to get people's attention. We have options.
Okay. I have a question about where the Alpha Loop would go from the Thompson Street existing over to Chelsea Walk. And we've got Kingery Lane. Can you tell me what happened with Park Street as an option and coming out of Thompson Street Park as opposed to coming up the hill from the loop to Thompson Street by where the 2 bridges are, if you follow where I'm saying?
So Kingery Lane is right here.
Mm-hmm.
So you're looking at going further to down here, the connection.
Right.
We could look at that.
Well, the reason I bring it up, first of all, I think we should claim what is ours on Kingery Lane and just do that. But where you come up from the Alpha Loop, like right now there's a new development and the grading's been done between the 2 bridges on the Thompson Street Alpha Loop, and it's quite steep.
Yeah.
And I think I've overheard that they might have a gutter or gully to roll a bicycle up there.
Okay.
Versus when you get over to Thompson Street Park and connect to Park Avenue, it's flat there. And so you're coming off of the Alpha Loop onto Park Avenue, and you're still having to deal with a signalized intersection. But it's another it's another signal, because we don't have a signal there. And that may be enough to say we don't want to do it there. I don't know what Public Works would say about having a signal there at the Wellstar at Park Avenue and Old Milton.
Well, we, unfortunately, don't have control over that area, because it's Old Mill Parkway, State Route 120.
It may be a moot point then. I don't know. I just know it's flatter for for bicyclists,
We could look at that
walkers.
area. We could look at that area and also look at bringing it down Old Mill Parkway from Park Street down to Kingery too.
I noted in the packet there was the circular connection by the Village Tavern. Actually, it's listed as number 6 in the staff report. Is that still under consideration, or is that just from an earlier version of the staff report? And it's just-
Earlier version, everything's up for consideration for mayor and council. That would put us over, for sure, put us over the top. Those 5 plus that one would bring us well above $7.5 million.
As you're looking for direction in this work session, I, for one, would not want to spend the money. And if you have the graphic, I don't know if you have that graphic
I
or
don't,
not.
I have a.
It's in the packet.
Yep.
And so, in this one, west side is to the left, and on the top left, I guess, would be Village Tavern. Is that
Correct.
correct? So when I look at a Google Maps of the parking lot for the office building just due west of Village Tavern, there's a sidewalk that goes down to West Side. And I think we are now considering an 8-foot wide sidewalk on West Side across Haynesbridge. Is that correct?
Correct.
And that wasn't there before, but because it's a very short walk to get to the Alpha Loop on West Side, including connecting with what we see here, I would not be in favor of spending the money for that circular bridge there just to accommodate 200, 300 feet of sidewalk to get to the, and last but not least, certainly not least, I would just continue to encourage all the designs and thought process to make it a true trail experience and only go sidewalk along roadways to the extent necessary. But we get one chance to get it right.
Correct.
And I think when it is completed, it'll be just amazing. So I appreciate everything you've been doing along those lines.
Thanks, sir.
Any other questions or feedback from council? I'll just mention, I agree with Councilman Hipes on that loop area. The cost benefit just isn't there. I'd love to have a connection there. I've walked that terrain. It's a challenge. But I just don't see the cost benefit. My priorities are to expand our connection to the Encore Greenway as quickly as possible. So I agree with that number one noted priority. When it comes to the crossing on Old Milton, I'm a little concerned about having 2 lights in that short a distance, even if GDOT would allow it. Also, it reminds me that years ago in a zoning, Northside Hospital, I think, has by right a property on the other side
Okay.
that I believe also came with the right to install a red light. So if you will, just go back and refresh our memory what that would look like, where they're going to have the right to put a red light on that property on Old Milton too. Yeah, I agree that we've got to make it safe. If we can use extra visuals on Old Milton and Haynesbridge, I think that's great. I do think, especially given the look of Kingery Lane now, that I would love to make that a beautification project, because even Park Street, it looks fine, but it's not an attractive, soothing environment. So I think we could do some nice beautification as you come into downtown Alpharetta on Kingery Lane at that connection. I like the other priorities that you've outlined. I'd have to really know the dollar amounts attached to those to give me a better idea of how to prioritize them, because some of them, cost benefit may help me rank them in orders.
And when we go through, when we hire the design firm, step one is going to be develop a concept plan with the initial cost estimate. So that will help us figure out if we want to move forward or not move forward with certain phases, if that's the case. So.
Okay. If there's no other comments or questions from council, we'll go ahead and end this work session. Thank you, Pete.
Thank you.
Mr. Lagerbloom, did you get what you need out of this?
I sure did. Did you get what you needed? Yep. I think we have good direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you both. Next item up under work session will be the shopping cart containment ordinance. I believe this is Mr. Drinkard.
Yes, sir. Mayor and Council, one of the issues that we've been seeing growing like a lot of communities is seeing shopping carts appear off the properties where they're supposed to be. They're making their way to bus stops, along sidewalks, sometimes in creeks, et cetera. It's a trend that's growing here in Alpharetta. It's also growing in many other communities. We currently don't have ordinances on the books to help us address that. So over the past several months, we've been working with the city attorney's office to develop an ordinance for your consideration that really does a couple of things. First, it starts to put an onus on the shopping cart owners to help us corral that problem using a variety of techniques. And then secondly, provide some enforcement capabilities for us in terms of things like impoundment and whatnot when they do show up off property. So what we want to do tonight is put some of this in front of us or in front of you. Couple of things to call out. You know, we've tried to take the best of a variety of ordinances that we've seen from not just around Georgia, but across the country. There's a lot of common themes, some that have been tested, and so we've really taken to that. Under this ordinance, there'd be a registration that's required. So those businesses that do employ shopping carts, they would have to register with us. So we have points of contact. We know, you know, what those carts look like, et cetera, because not all of them are emblazoned with the business name. That's another part of it, is altering the signage requirements so that every cart that's being operated does have a signage requirement so we can identify what store it belongs to, not just, you know, I'm going to avoid using actual names. Well, you know, grocery store, grocery chain A may have multiple stores in the city, so which store is it? So we know which store we're having problems with and which store we need to be talking to in terms of better containment of their carts. Also signage on property so that folks know you can't take this off property, get rid of that potential argument. And then a containment and retrieval plan. Now, the containment and retrieval plan, one, if carts show up off property today, many of those stores, they're counting on us to bring their carts back to them. And so our code enforcement officers, our police officers are dealing with this because we want to be, you know, we want to have good relations with our businesses. And so we're trying to work with them, but really it's their cart. They need to come get it. Especially if it shows up on private property. You know, if somebody calls them, hey, your cart is in the creek behind my house, you need to come get it. So it's part of that, but then what measures will they use to stop the carts from leaving their property in the first place? There are containment technologies that can be applied and that have become very common in communities across the country. Most of the larger chains that operate here are using those technologies in other communities. But when you start looking at the articles as these technologies are being introduced, they're basically saying, unless a community tells us we have to do it, we're not doing it. And so this starts to put the onus on them. So they use wheel lock technologies. If you think about if you're familiar with the concept of an invisible fence for a dog. Same basic concept. If you start to cross that line, the wheels lock up. And some of them do it on a distance from the store itself. They can do it that way. So there's a variety of means that they can use for that type of technology. There's also additional things that they can do if you've ever been to an Aldi. Aldi, you drop in your quarter to get your shopping cart. It's surprisingly effective for them. So you can have a combination of things, but we really want the businesses to become part of the solution. And that's what this is about. There are some civil penalties outlined in here. And I'm going to let Molly speak to some of this. She worked hard on this ordinance, and she knows it backwards and forwards. And right now she's looking at me going, why did you say that? Some of that's in there. Now, in terms of how we roll this out, obviously there's got to be an introduction period and an education period with the businesses. As Mr. Lagenblum likes to say, how long will that take? It's going to take as long as it takes. The more we see the businesses working with us, the more we're going to work with them. If a business tells us, look, we want to do this, but it's going to take us 8 months before we can get the stuff in that we need to put in place. Well, okay, that's not unreasonable. Of course we're going to work with you. But there has to be that educational component. Just like anything else the city does, we're not interested in fines and penalties. What we really want is be part of the solution and work with us. So that's what this is all about. If you'd like, I can turn it over to the city attorney and let her walk through specific elements. We can respond to questions, whatever you prefer.
Does anyone have any questions at this point? Seeing none, Ms. Eswine?
Thank you. So one of the things that we noticed in some of the ordinances across the country were just kind of a lack of procedures generally. It didn't really go through the process of what to do in the instance of a violation. And you actually had some language in some ordinances where, if you don't give us a shopping cart retrieval plan, we're just going to go and order you to get rid of all of your shopping carts, and if you don't do it, we're just going to take them without due process, which obviously Alpharetta is not going to do. So we added that in, beefed it up a good bit, consistent with, and there are some that have that. But essentially, in looking at the enforcement mechanism, we wanted to make sure that people had the right and opportunity to be heard. And so there is an appeal process. Say someone were to file for their registration certificate and there was a deficiency such that it got denied, they could appeal that to the community development director. And if ever there were to be a situation where after going through all of this process, there were just continued violations. This does provide for the opportunity for the city council to have a hearing for possible, say, suspension or revocation of that registration certificate. And that would actually require a hearing before you. So we would provide notice to the potential violator. They would have the opportunity to come and present any mitigating evidence. Why is their plan not working? What have they done to try and address that? And you would be able to take all of that into consideration in deciding whether or not to suspend or revoke their registration certificate. But the point is that in addition to providing for violations, we're also providing for that appeal mechanism.
Thank you, Ms. Eswine. Any questions, Mayor Pro Tem?
Questions or comments?
Either one. This is a work session. We're just trying to give them feedback.
Right. No, I've been in a little bit of these discussions early on when Chris first got here. And he and I spent a fair amount of time when he moved back to town because he was living in an apartment by himself, bacheloring it, and my wife works a lot of weekends. So we drove around a lot. It's one of the things we saw. And he talked about how the opportunities are to put something like this in place, and when it got to the priority list, which is where it is now, I applaud it. It's a bigger city issue, and we're becoming a bigger city, and I think it's kind of cool that we're getting out ahead of things like this. And again, other cities already do it. You name the big box in this city, they've got locations that already have it and know what they're doing. So this is nothing new we're jumping on. We may have to be flexible with some of the mom and pops, and I get that. But I think it's a great first step, and James is right. You know, we're going to be flexible as to how we roll it out to, you know, whatever it takes to get it accomplished. It may take 8, 12, 16, 18, may take 2 years. I don't know, but it's going in the right direction. I think you'll see other municipalities around us, when they hear about this, start to consider it as well. So thank you for the time and effort put into this, and I fully support this.
I'll just say that I agree with Mayor Pro Tem Merkel. It wasn't something that I paid a lot of attention to until Mr. Lagerbloom started pointing it out to me, and then I saw them everywhere. You know, the detention pond on Haynesbridge Road was a natural spot where people would just roll down there and throw it into the detention pond or the retention area or whatever. And I have seen some. I remember coming home one night from a Braves game. It was late, and I got off at the exit on Haynesbridge Road, and someone had left a shopping cart from Target right there in the walk, the crosswalk. And I thought, you know, it's late. Somebody wasn't paying close enough attention. They could have broadsided that thing and caused a mess. So, I mean, it's a safety issue, but it's also just something that needs to be done so that we don't have to. Right now, we've got other workers going around. When we see them, it's like, hey, can Parks and Rec send somebody over to pick this up? Or can a police officer fish this out of this, you know, gully or something like that? So I think it's the step in the right direction. Thank you. Councilman Mitchell?
Thank you. I'm supportive of this as well, but I do have a question. So as far as the particular apparatus or program that the store puts into place, it's up to that store. Like, I'm thinking like Publix may have a way to curtail their carts by a distance, but what if somebody like a smaller chain, they're not really small, but Hobby Lobby that has a lot of parking carts left all over the parking area, or TJ Maxx or something. Is it up to them to come up with the way they enforce?
Correct. The requirement is that they have to have some form of a mobilization technology that they're using. There's a variety of packages out there and technologies out there. It's kind of mind-boggling how many different ways there are to go about it. But that's the requirement, is they have to have the mobilization capability, but what application they use to do that is up to them.
Okay, so if their technique is not working, then they would simply acquire some type of billing from the city if we find their carts out and about?
Yes, sir, that is correct. Once we move out of education and start moving into the actual enforcement period, there are provisions in here that we can start levying fines for carts that are found. Now, obviously, here again, we're going to work with folks, because just as we see all too often, you know, sometimes technologies fail, right? If they have a technology in place and the system is working, but it went down, fix the system. We're not going to fine you for it. You know, we're going to be looking for the ones who are the routine problems. That's what we're really going to focus on the enforcement side. If it's a one-off here and there, the Alpharetta way is not to go beat somebody over the head. That's just not the way we operate.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Any other feedback or questions? Mr. Lagerbloom, are you satisfied?
We got what we needed, thank you, yes.
Thank you, sir. So that'll wrap up the work session items. We'll move on to the consent agenda. Consent agenda consists of the city council meeting minutes from the meeting of February 19th, 2024, the city council meeting minutes from the meeting of February 26th, 2024, and the alcoholic beverage license application PH-24-AB-02, Halloween LLC, DBA Zaza Restaurant and Lounge, 124 DeVore Road, Alpharetta, Georgia, 3009. Ms. Shapiro, do we have any public comment cards on the consent agenda?
We do not, Mr. Mayor.
However, if anyone would like to come forward and speak, now's your chance to speak on that item. Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Do I have a motion from council on the consent agenda?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilman Hypes, a second by Councilman Mitchell. Any discussion? All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please vote yes. And it does pass unanimously. Next item up will be the public hearing item. That's the ordinance for the text amendment Code of Alpharetta. Ms. Eswine, if you'll go ahead and read the item.
An ordinance to amend Chapter 32, Parks and Recreation of the Code of the City of Alpharetta, Georgia, to amend rules and regulations for parks owned and operated by the city, to provide for effective dates, to repeal all ordinances in conflict herewith, and for all other purposes.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Lagerbloom, would you like to begin this item?
Sure, absolutely I can. Mayor and council, so we had park rules that dictate what events could happen in parks. The Parks Department, meeting with our director, had approved some events because they thought that that was the direction that we wanted to go specifically in this Union Hill Park. To give you an example, Shamrocking for a Cure, this grill fest that's coming up in April, as well as a series of Home by Dark concerts that'll happen over the summer and fall. The ordinance as it was drafted would have prohibited those events. So this modification allows for it. So this is truly, I think, in that category of we're making our ordinance allow what we have already thought we were allowing. And if this adopts tonight and then on second read, it would be in place prior to the next event that happens at Union Hill Park, so we could feel comfortable that the events that were happening were in compliance with our code.
Thank you, sir. Director Rogers, do you have anything to add to that? Please note that he was shaking his head no. I know, that was just for the public record, because I'm not sure it was recorded. But thank you, Director Rogers. I do appreciate y'all bringing this forward. Any other questions or input? Ms. Shapiro, do we have any public comment cards?
We do not, Mr. Mayor.
However, if anyone would like to come forward and speak on this item, now is your chance. Seeing no one, we'll close public comment. Do I have a motion from council?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that council adopt the ordinance to amend Chapter 32, Parks and Recreation of the Code of City of Alpharetta, to amend rules and regulations for parks owned and operated by the city, and to repeal all ordinances in conflict, and to approve the ordinance as referenced by the city attorney.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilman Hypes, a second by Mayor Pro Tem Merkel. Any discussion? All those in favor of approving the motion for the first reading of the text amendment Code of Alpharetta, Georgia, please vote yes. And it does pass unanimously. We'll move on to new business. Next new business item is the resolution for the fiscal year 2025 City Council priorities and annual action plan. Mr. Lagerbloom, once again, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, council, this is an action plan that we put together post your council retreat. We did this last year. This is a continuation in year 2. This will be the document by which we base preparing for and submitting budget requests, et cetera, for fiscal year 25. There were some changes during your retreat, specifically to the calling of the redevelopment of North Point. We had it just as a more global, good growth, good redevelopment in the last year. That focused in at the council's direction to specifically call out the North Point area. We added some bullet points. I don't need to bore you with those details. They were published, and you had the opportunity to read them as to some of the actions that go along with those priorities. But for the record, just coming out of your retreat, the top priorities that you all identified this year for fiscal year 25, and I'll read the top priorities first, is strategic growth and redevelopment of North Point, safe and welcoming community, the Alpha Loop and Greenway, downtown Alpharetta, communications that connect, and you went on to further identify 5 priorities for the city, and that's recreation, parks and culture, infrastructure and facilities maintenance, transportation and traffic, people-focused workforce, and economic development. This document in and of itself doesn't hold the force of an ordinance, but it is a guiding document, and we will generally have our work plan match your priorities. Like last year, we'll report then on those priorities' progress to you all so that you can feel comfortable that from a performance management perspective, we're aligned with your vision and we're executing on projects that mean things to Alpharetta and are consistent with where you want to go. So happy to answer any questions, but that's the basis of this document. And you're adopting it by resolution just gives it the force that we can rely upon it to pick our work plan for the next fiscal year. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Lagerblum? Thank you, sir. I appreciate you doing this. I think the accountability and having something in print that we all can refer to, especially for our many departments and our staff, to help inform their decisions and recommendations to us based on these policies. If there's nothing else, Ms. Shapiro, do we have any public comment cards?
We do not, Mr. Mayor.
However, now's your chance to come forward if you'd like to speak on this action plan. Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Do I have a motion from council?
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the resolution for fiscal year 2025 City Council priorities and annual action plan.
And I wholeheartedly second that.
I have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Merkel, a second by Councilman Hypes, wholeheartedly. Any discussion? Ms. Shapiro, any public comment cards? Good deal. All right, all those in favor of the motion to approve the resolution with the fiscal year 2025 City Council priorities and action plan, please vote yes, otherwise vote accordingly. And it does pass unanimously. So that'll wrap up new business, and if we have anyone here for public comments, now's your opportunity. Seeing no one, Ms. Shapiro, do we have any public comment cards?
We do not, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for checking. Do we have any reports this evening? Councilman Mitchell.
This is a positive report. I'd like to recognize Brandon Beach. He tried to pass a state law that would prohibit adversarial companies from buying land near military bases. I think that needs to be done in Georgia. It didn't make crossover day in time, but I really applaud him for his efforts there. I think it's necessary.
Thanks, sir. Any other reports? That'll wrap up the reports. Do we have any executive session items for this evening?
For the first time in a long time, we do not.
Okay. I was wondering if anything had changed since this morning. But
It has not.
It has not. All right. So we are ready to adjourn. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
I think Councilman Hypes was first and the second by Mayor Pro Tem Merkel. Any discussion? All those in favor of adjourning, please vote yes. The suspense is killing me. And it does pass unanimously. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We appreciate you being here, and we look forward to seeing you again. Meeting is adjourned.